All right. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Camila. I am the Chief Relationship Officer here at Montessori Thrive. Um, I occasionally join the town halls now, and this week I wanted to talk about the future of Montessori marketing, adapting to a changing world. I'm going to share my screen here in a moment. I hope everyone's doing well today. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. These town halls, they happen every Thursday from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Eastern, throughout the school year as just a way to offer support to school leaders, offer a sense of community. Um, all right, let me share my screen. All right. So, a little overview of what we'll be covering today. So, today we'll explore why enrollment feels harder for many schools. I know I've been having a lot of conversations, and I think it's safe to say that this enrollment season has probably been the toughest since COVID. I feel like people thought they were getting on their feet, and all of a sudden, it's just been a challenging year. It feels like it's out of nowhere. Um, that might not be the case for your school. It's just kind of a general observation that we've made. The economic and demographic changes are affecting Montessori. I think the world is a bit crazy right now. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of big changes coming. Technology is reshaping, school discovery, how people learn about us. Um, we also have, the role of positioning and messaging is important and it's also changing a lot. So I'm going to talk about that and then the evolving direction of Montessori Thrive's marketing services. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because for those of you who are familiar with us, you know that this time last year we were marketing and we had very different offerings than we're offering now. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why that is. And then practical ways that school leaders can protect their time and school health, because that's also a priority. So as I said, kind of the consensus that we've come to is that it's been challenging for Montessori schools. We are hearing that there's lower inquiry volume, longer decision cycles for families. There's a lot more price sensitivity. I think tuition has always been a pain point for Montessori schools. But I think now more than ever, I think economic situations are not ideal, and we're competing with increased competition, especially from state subsidized programs that are becoming popular at the TK level. That was not something that's always been around. Higher expectations for communication. Enrollment pressure is not isolated, it's systemic. This is happening across the board. I want to reassure you that it's not just your school, you're not on an island. This is something that we're noticing across the board. This makes us kind of come to the conclusion that the landscape has changed. There are three major forces that we can now see are reshaping Montessori enrollment. Economic shifts is one. I think if you were head of school as well, probably during the 2008 recession, you would have noticed kind of a similar shift. It could be temporary, it could be something longer lasting. We don't know how that will play out. Demographic shifts. We're now seeing more Gen Z parents entering our communities. I think values are changing, priorities are changing. And there's also huge digital discovery changes. I think when we started as Nido Marketing 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now, we were pitching Google Ads because that was really how you were able to be seen and discovered online. Is if you were running an ad, you were going to be top of, the search page, you were going to get the traffic that you needed, and that's all that it really took. Once someone was able to go on your website and call, it really kind of sped up the process into enrollment. And now that's just not the case. The journey looks a little bit different. We'll talk about it, we'll break it down. There are other methods of digital discovery that are proving to be a lot more successful. So there are huge changes there. So these forces are all happening at the same time, and that's why it feels so stressful and overwhelming. And it's also difficult to diagnose like what is wrong with the enrollment at each school because it's just a lot of things happening at once. And you kind of have to switch and change a lot of things at once if you want to stay on the correct course and continue to grow your enrollment. First thing that needs to be addressed is just the economic realities for families. When we are in times that are a little bit more difficult economically, people become more nitpicky. They become more financially cautious. Again, there are many drivers of this, and it might look different in your area. Maybe you're in an area where this is not an issue. It's kind of a diagnosis you have to make just looking around your community. But something that we're noticing is there's rising cost of living, there's increased housing costs, especially for single family homes, which means that's something that, families want to have. People that have children want the single family home. There's inflation pressure, and there's greater scrutiny of private education costs. I think a lot of families are, when they have children, they maybe think about saving up for college and they sacrifice that private education at the start of life. It's a lot more difficult to convince them that that is something that is really hugely important, and that they should be focusing on, especially in the first 6 years of life. So parents are asking the question, is this worth the investment? And it's a much more difficult thing to convince them of, given all of these economic realities at play. So it's something that we have to prepare a very, very strong story. We need to be consistent and we need to be supportive of families that are experiencing all of these things, because it's always good to be aware of your market. What is going on in your local community? What are the pressures that families are facing? Let's be aware. I know a lot of Montessori schools either offer financial aid or are looking at ways to do that. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of expand those programs if possible, and also see if there is some way for you to participate in state subsidized, tokens or vouchers. I know it's different via each state. I know a lot of Montessori schools, they want to retain a quality and authenticity to their programs. And sometimes those voucher programs can um, don't support authentic Montessori in the way that we would like. But this is something that hopefully will change and expand over time, but that's something to consider. Um, Next is the demographics shift. I think this is where we really want to think about our tone and our messaging and how we're wording things. Um, I mean, we've seen the statistics, and this might not be the case. Maybe you live in an area of the country where there's loads of families and, people having young children. That could be the case. But just overall in the United States, the reality is that birth rates are declining. And also, what's interesting is that in certain areas, especially high cost of living areas, we were just in California last year, a lot of families are choosing to have only children. So it's just one child, which again, that makes it more difficult for us to recruit more enrollment because we rely on a lot of those siblings. That usually helps us retain families for longer. And now that's, becoming more difficult to come across in certain areas. So implications for school includes smaller preschool cohorts, which we have noticed this. Increased competition for families. Again, there's a smaller amount of children and there's the same amount of childcare programs or maybe even an increased amount of childcare programs. So there's just more competition for those families that have children. And longer enrollment timelines. I think, parents, they explore all of their options. Things don't happen necessarily overnight. I think there was a time where, families would inquire and quickly enroll, and sometimes that is the case, but I think it's happening less and less. So something to kind of take note of is that this is a structural demographic trend. It's not a temporary fluctuation. What I mean by this is everything kind of has to change and adapt. This is not something that is going to be resolved overnight, and we kind of have to look at these external factors and figure out how we're going to navigate this future, how we're going to adapt, how we're going to change our messaging, and how we're going to make sure that we can still reach families and continue to grow enrollment despite these challenges existing. I think probably this is the biggest pain point that we've seen this year in terms of competition for enrollment is the rise of state subsidized childcare. So it's here in a lot of states. And It's not temporary. This is going to be the new normal. We're going to continue to see probably a growth of these services. Right now, we don't know the quality is not comparable to Montessori, but that could change over time as well. These programs could get more funding and become better. So we have to continue to find our value proposition and make sure that it is communicated very effectively in order to make sure that families see the value in what we're offering. So many governments are expanding these universal preschool programs, the subsidized childcare, public early childhood education. And I don't think this is going away. And Montessori schools that have adolescent programs, elementary programs, you've already been um, competing with public school. But now we're entering an era where we're competing with public school for much younger programs. This was not always around. So this is something that, yeah, it's going to be a lasting challenge for Montessori's to overcome. So for families, this creates lower cost alternatives, which given the economic state, it's the perfect kind of storm for Montessori schools because they're already feeling financial pressure. And so they're going to choose the state subsidized programs because they feel that it is the best financial choice. And they're more accessible options. Now, that doesn't mean that we're losing families that would be our ideal, avatar, our ideal target audience. The Montessori parent is still there and we can still capture them. It's just you really have to tell a moving story in order to do so. And before it was just a very, very different landscape. Also, how families search for schools is changing a lot, and it's going to continue to be something that changes in the future. 10 years ago, families relied on word of mouth. I still think that that is relevant. Word of mouth is always going to be something that's important for Montessori schools, but I think, before you could almost entirely rely on it without having to do much in terms of marketing or um, having kind of a communication strategy. Local reputation used to be, of much bigger importance. I still think that it's important and valuable, but I think that that is, how you were recognized before and how people found you before. And it's just now there's so much more competition. There's so many more offerings. And parent networks. Something that's happening is that community is kind of being lost. A lot of parents express that they feel they live on an island, they don't have a village. There are not the same parent networks that existed a couple of years ago. A lot of parents, especially Montessori parents, both parents work. So, it's just a little bit harder to have that sense of community where parents are connecting with one another, sharing things with one another. Today, families are searching for schools via online search. We're still seeing Google search as one of the biggest ways that that parents are finding schools. Online reviews. Online reviews is your new word of mouth. So parents are searching for programs on niche.com, great schools. It's really, really important to have reviews. The way that people in younger generations search is what is the place that has the best reputation based off of what I'm seeing online? What is the most trustworthy school based off of what I'm seeing online? They don't read, magazines, they don't read things, newspapers. It's what exists online. What is the highest ranked restaurant on Yelp? That's where I'm going to go on my first date. It's the same with schools. What is the highest ranked school that has the most good reviews? That is a school that I think is worth my time when it comes to going for a tour. So that's important. Social media is another big thing that's here to stay. And I think increasingly we are seeing that Instagram is the most important. And not only just posting content, but the type of content that you're posting is really important. The way that younger generations think is they're influenced a lot by what is being shared content-wise online. So that's your opportunity to really share a peek into what Montessori is all about. Share video content. I cannot stress this enough. Video content is hugely, hugely, hugely valuable. Yes, it's time consuming. If there is anyone in your school who can assist, whether it's a parent, whether it's an assistant teacher, video content is the most valuable content to share on social media. If you have the capability to do like a short reel on Instagram, that has a much further reach than a photograph, 10 times the reach, because that is being shared with people that do not follow you. So it's a new way to be discovered. And then the other thing is AI generated recommendations. Now, when we click Google and we ask Google a question, the first thing that comes up is an AI generated response. People are increasingly using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini to do their research for school. So instead of asking Google, they're asking ChatGPT to generate a list of the best schools in their area. Um, so it's very important to have content because AI only draws from what exists online. If you are invisible online, you are not being found, and you are not going to get the number of inquiries that you could be if you have an online presence. Continuing on the AI shift and discoverability, because I think this is going to be really important. I've had a lot of meetings this year with school leaders that, they, at the beginning of their journey with us, it was all about Google Ads. If you invest in Google Ads, you're going to be visible. If you invest in Google Ads, you're going to be visible. It's not the case necessarily anymore. AI is really changing how people discover things online. And as I mentioned, AI just draws from what exists on the internet currently. If it doesn't exist online, it's invisible. If you don't have information about what Montessori is, you're not going to come up when a parent asks, "What is Montessori?" You're going to be invisible. If you have the question and answer on your website, you're going to come up because AI is going to draw from what is on your site. It likes to show people local results. Um, so all of this is important to kind of take into consideration. AI generated search results are here. I don't think they're going anywhere. They're probably only going to get better over time. AI summaries of schools online. This is another thing is right now, if AI had to write a summary on your school, what story would it tell parents? Like, is the content there on your website to tell AI, here's what I want you to share with parents? Because just having program information, just having a little bit about your history, it's not enough. It needs to be a lot more in depth. There needs to be a value proposition there because that's what parents are looking at. They don't have the attention span to explore every page, but the content still needs to be there because AI is drawing from it and creating a summary. So it's really, really beneficial for you to have strategic content online, whether that's on your social media pages, whether that's on your testimonial sites, whether that's on your actual website. You want to have people talking about your school online. You want to have good content online where these tools can draw from. So the root marketing challenge, something that I kind of want to I want to stop using the word marketing a little bit more. Part of our rebrand at Montessori Thrive was we took the word marketing off of our title, our company title, and that's because marketing is not always going to be the solution or the direction that you need to take. It's not always marketing tactics. It's really about understanding how to position yourself and to have a very strong enrollment strategy. What I mean by that is how you're communicating with parents and how you're taking them through that enrollment journey. And I'm going to break it down like step by step shortly. But I think when I look at the bigger picture, when I meet with schools and I'm kind of assessing their website, I'm assessing their social media, I always take a look at multiple outlets online. Um, it's a much bigger issue to diagnose because the school might not be able to clearly communicate online what Montessori actually is in a way that's understandable as well to parents. Why it matters and why it's worth it, especially why it's worth it financially. You don't have to say in your website, this is why Montessori is worth what it costs. But a family really needs to understand if they're going to be making a significant investment in their early childhood education, why would they need to do that? Why is that valuable? They don't have Montessori training, maybe. They don't understand our approach. And why this school specifically? Why would they choose to do Montessori instead of Reggio Emilia or Waldorf or a daycare? And then why would they choose your Montessori school over another Montessori school? So you need to have really, really strong messaging in place throughout all of the stages of communication with the parent in order to effectively sell your brand, and sell your school. I think a big issue that we continue to have to overcome in Montessori is kind of the perception of Montessori versus daycare. And I think it's only going to get harder with these state subsidized programs. People have this free option, and we really, really have to position ourselves as something, we're an alternative to daycare. We are actually a different option for families that don't want that. We want to separate ourselves from these programs. So many families, they see Montessori as, a childcare option, a preschool program, one of many educational choices, but it's actually much more than that. It's a developmental philosophy, it's a long-term education approach, and it's a different vision of childhood. We have to really lean into we are an alternative option. You don't have, just like you don't have to go to public school, you don't have to go to these free TK programs. This is who we are, and this is what we see, and this is the value in what we offer. So it's really important to lean into that, I think, moving forward. What families are really buying? This is another thing that we have to kind of strategically explain to them in a way that's approachable. So families are not buying materials. They're not buying even the curriculum. They're not buying the classroom aesthetics. I think a lot of people, they come across a Montessori video on their, phone or on a blog, and they think this is so beautiful. But Montessori is much more than aesthetics. They are buying a vision of childhood. They are buying a developmental approach, a community aligned with their values. So we need to make sure this is properly explained at every stage, whether that's the website, how they're discovering us, our social media. Does your social media effectively explain these things? Is it showing like what children are doing in the classroom, the purpose behind the work that is being carried out? Um, do you feel that if you were a parent that never heard about your school, if you went on your social media profile right now, is it being a true reflection of what's going on in your school day to day? What is the value of the investment? Not just crafts and things like that, because that's great and that's fun to share occasionally, but that doesn't tell your true story from a strategic standpoint. You need videos to kind of say, this is why, this is our math shelf. This is why these materials work, or something a little bit more all in so that parents actually understand what the investment is going towards. Um, and the fact that you're offering a community aligned with their values, because, these free TK programs are available, but they're not what everybody wants. They're not the ideal fit for every child and every parent. So you're here to say, we have a community that might be more aligned and might be more of what you're looking for. We're here, and this is who we are, and this is why we could be worth it for you. I think that's going to be kind of the new approach. So it's not marketing. It's thinking about it as an enrollment strategy, because I think of marketing, what it makes me think just on the surface level is I pay for an ad brings me people, people make purchases. It's a very simplified way of looking at it. And in a way, I think it takes away a lot of the actual bigger work that needs to go into it for Montessori. It's a much bigger question that we have to answer, and we have to provide value to parents. Um, so I think the conversations that I'm having with Montessori schools is that they look at it and they say, oh, okay, well, I'm investing in Google Ads. I'm getting clicks, but I'm not seeing the return on the investment. I'm not seeing that. And I think that's where it's okay. What messaging can I improve on my website? Or when a parent does fill out a form, how often are we following up with them? Are we adding them to our newsletter? Are they hearing from us? Or do we have enough information for them to learn about the value of what we're offering? So it's a much, much deeper, layered process to kind of diagnose what is lacking, what is missing, what can be improved. And ultimately, it comes from those breaks in the enrollment system. It's not necessarily caused by marketing, because you could be very visible online and you fall through the cracks somewhere else. Maybe you're not visible online. That crack is at the very, very top of the journey. So it's about identifying what is the issue and how can how can that be improved? So understanding that system, I think, changes things. Um, yeah, and even schools with beautiful classrooms, passionate teachers, and strong leadership can struggle to fill programs. It's not the quality of your school or program that is um, preventing people from enrolling. It's that now the work really has to be all in because there's so much more choice and there are so many ways to be visible, and you have to build those connections before people even walk through your door. It's just a much bigger system now. I want to take a look at the journey families take because I think things have changed a lot, based off of when I speak to schools at past town halls, just seeing how the last couple of years have played out. We've learned a lot about this process, and what step each parent takes, and then what we as a school need to do in order to make sure that we are capitalizing on each of these steps as much as possible. And the steps really come down to discovery, interest, tour, decision, enrollment. So I'm going to break down each of these steps and how you can, level up your school so that you can take full advantage of each step. So the first step is discovery. So this is probably the most simple step, and every school can do a couple of small things to make sure that they're more discovered online. I think before a family can fall in love with your school, before they can connect with you, they have to be able to find your school. So this can happen through various channels, as I shared earlier. We're still seeing that it's largely Google search, referrals from other parents, online reviews, community reputation, and social media. So a couple of things that you can do in order to improve the stage. And usually when I meet with schools, this is not the stage where they have the biggest issues. The breaks come a little like I think the further down the pipeline, the the more risk of the cracks. This is usually where schools are doing very well. But first thing is a website audit. Take a look at your website. It has to have good quality content, and it has to explain what Montessori is, why they should pick your school, what programs you have, what are the benefits of the programs you have. Your website needs to be very impressive. And again, remember that moving forward, your website is a learning tool for AI. If something is not mentioned on the website, it means it's invisible to AI. AI cannot provide a summary to parents that includes the true meaning of your school. So, even if you have a website that's 35 pages, not every prospective parent is going to visit every page, but the content there serves a purpose. It serves a purpose of discoverability. So you want to make sure you have strategic content throughout your entire website. Um, Referrals from other parents are important, and you want to have a method for increasing the amount of referrals you're getting online and also encourage parents to spread, word of mouth with their friends. So you could have a referral program where you're incentivizing families, maybe offering them a discount if a family that they refer the school to ends up enrolling. You could have a system in place like that that you consistently communicate with parents. Or you could also have an email campaign. I actually recommend having like both systems set up. Encouraging parents to leave reviews for your school on, the direct link to your niche.com review. Leave a short review, or great schools and Yelp. Just leave us a review, copy and paste it and put it on all the platforms. We greatly appreciate it. Helps us a lot. That's something that you can encourage parents to do. Next time you have any kind of school gathering with currently enrolled families, take advantage of it and ask them for a review. Another great time to do this is actually the end of the school year. We're reaching that point where we're getting close to spring break. We're getting close to, we're halfway point of the second semester for some schools. So it's a good time to start thinking about, let's ask parents for reviews. Let's make sure that we get that before they either leave our communities or move up to another program. We want their feedback. Community reputation, that's another thing you want to maintain. Again, continuing to nurture those reviews online. A big thing that I think is helpful is any kind of parent testimonial or alumni testimonial is really great, whether it's a story you're sharing in a blog, whether it's a video testimonial you're sharing on your Instagram or your website. All of those things are really beneficial. And, and utilize social media. I cannot stress enough, and I said it at the beginning, I'm going to say it again. Make video content. Gen Z is watching short form videos online. That's how they learn everything and how they're absorbing the world around them. They are watching recipe videos, they are watching parenting videos, they are watching everything on TikTok and Instagram Reels. And that is how you're going to reach them in the future. So you have to be making video content. Um, if you're not comfortable with it, get comfortable with it or find someone on your staff that is comfortable because you need someone kind of on the ground taking a couple of videos. It's, and I know we run into the challenge of getting parent permissions. I would urge you to kind of meet with parents and talk about why these videos are so important. Because Montessori, it has to be seen. It has to be seen to really be understood. You have to see a child working. You have to see these things. That's why we invite parents to observe. Um, so I think, video has to be the media that we continue to use when marketing. If too few families reach this stage, if you feel like you're not getting calls, you're not getting inquiries, this is the stage you need to focus on first. If you feel like you're getting a good amount of inquiries, people are, sending you emails, making phone calls, setting up tours, this is not probably going to be the biggest problem that you're facing. And this is the stage where the traditional marketing plays the largest role. So again, if you're getting inquiries, traditional marketing is not your problem. Google ads are not your problem. Content is not your problem. It's the diagnosis has to come further along in the enrollment process. So we'll look then at step two, which is interest. So this is when families decide to learn more. They discover our website. They begin asking questions like, is this place right for my child? Your website and messaging have to help them answer questions like, what makes Montessori different? What does a classroom feel like? How will my child grow here? Even if every prospective parent is not reading all of this, have it on your website, have that information available. If families visit your website but never reach out, the issue is often clarity, not demand. Because they clicked your website because they're searching for schools. They visited your site. They're clearly shopping around and looking for options, doing research. Um, if they weren't impressed and you're not getting that level of interest that you need to further them along the enrollment process, you really need to assess the content, the accessibility of your website. Is it clear how they can schedule a tour? Is it clear what programs you offer, what ages you serve, what the benefits of your program are? Um, Another good way to measure interest is to gate your tuition because your tuition is how you actually identify if somebody has interest. Because if you list your pricing online and they just look at the price and they leave, is that person interested? Yes, but they're not ready for a bigger conversation yet. So if you actually get your tuition, you put it behind a form so a parent has to hand over their email, you know that parent is interested. If they haven't reached out, then price is the pain point. But we can address that. We can have a conversation. We can invite them for a tour. We can introduce a financial aid program to them. We can have that conversation and we can still welcome that family into our community somehow. So a good kind of marker is let's gate tuition and let's see how many people request that form because that indicates our website piqued their interest enough for them to want to know the price. Um, so that's another kind of good way to measure whether you're doing successfully on the step two. Step three is the tour. So this is another hugely, hugely, hugely important element in the marketing strategy. And you said we're not using the word marketing in the enrollment strategy. Families experience the environment for the first time. As I mentioned earlier, Montessori has to be seen to be believed. And when someone sees it for what it truly is, I think they always fall in love. They always see that as something really special. This is where we can really take the opportunity to say, we're very different from these free TK programs, or we're very different from public school. We can highlight what sets us apart. It's really beneficial to kind of explain what parents are seeing in a way that feels approachable. Um, the tour is one of the most powerful moments in this process. Parents are not just observing the classroom. As Montessorians, we walk into a space and we observe everything, we look at the details. They're not necessarily asking themselves those questions. They're looking at everything and saying, does this, do the children seem calm and engaged? Which typically in Montessori, we have such peaceful, beautiful environments. Do the teachers feel confident and warm? Like, can I picture my child here several hours a day with this leader? Does the environment feel right for our family? Does this align with, our home values? Can I see my child here? A thoughtful tour is about building trust and understanding. That's really all it is it's answering those questions and speaking to parents somewhat on from an emotional perspective, and also providing, just enough data to pique their interest and allow them to see the value. Um, so a rushed and unclear tour can leave parents unsure. I think you don't want parents to leave with more questions than answers because then it's very easy for them to write off Montessori as something that's not right for them. So, introduce the environment, ensure that there is some level of trust built, and you can always send them home with extra information so that they can continue to learn. You can say on the tour, it's impossible to share everything about Montessori in a 1 hour tour. So I'm going to send you with a package so you can learn more. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can ask us. Um, because I think if we try to explain the whole philosophy from top to bottom on a tour, it can feel very overwhelming to parents. It's just about building trust and really just bringing your value to the forefront. What are you getting when you enroll here? Again, a good way to assess whether this stage is doing well is if you're getting 3 tours a week, but no one is enrolling, then this is the point where you would audit your tour. What is the tour like? What is not working? How can we change things to see if, we get more enrollments down the line? Can we provide more resources to families? Um, Maybe even consider, following up with an SMS questionnaire. It could be a anonymous questionnaire about, how the tour went. All of these things can help you audit the tour method and identify if that's actually good or bad at your school. Step 4 is the decision. This is when parents are comparing their options, they're weighing out the pros and cons of everything. They might have visited several schools, and families evaluate. And again, when economic times are tough and things are, can be a little bit of a pain point, they're more nitpicky than ever. So it's really important to have, a plethora of information for them. Be ready to communicate with them, really highlight your value because they're going to be looking at everything and making sure it's worth the investment, which is fair enough. But we believe that Montessori is worth the investment. Um, this is where the follow-up and communication becomes super, super important. So after a tour, parents should still be hearing from you. They should be included in your newsletters. Every time, you publish a blog about the benefits of Montessori, they should be in the loop. They should continue to, be invited to learn more from your school. If you haven't heard from a parent, it's okay to follow up. Even if they chose to go to another school, you say, thank you so much for giving us the heads up. We're always here if you change your mind. Um, but the follow-up communication is really important. And if you don't do it, your competitors are doing it. Or, the free TK programs are free. So they have to do a lot less heavy lifting than we do. So that's the reality. So, if you feel that after the tour is when things also kind of fall through the cracks, this could be an area that you want to look at. It's how's the follow-up process going? How often are the touch points post-tour? All of that is significant. Step 4 is, this is step 5, is enrollment. The family joins your community at this point. So the final step should really feel smooth and welcoming. This is kind of, closing the deal. You want to make sure that in this process, families feel really welcome. The process is really clear to them. There's clear communication and simple processes to help families feel confident about their decision. Um, when this step works well, families they also get more invested. This is your opportunity to invite parents to the events, have a parent-school partnership agreement and invite them and say, hey, this is a partnership, raising a child takes a village, and we're here to be that village. We want you to be involved as well. We want you to feel like you have a supportive community around you as a parent. Again, this is a value that we offer that a lot of free programs don't have the capacity to offer. So this is another value proposition for us as Montessori schools. It also creates long-term advocates for your school. When parents have a good experience from start to finish, that's when they become ambassadors. It builds up your reputation. They're more likely to leave an online review, which helps you bring business. So everything works very seamlessly, and you have a really strong enrollment process in place. Um, so, kind of revisiting where most schools struggle in each of these areas. So, when they're struggling with step one, visibility, it's that not enough families know about the schools. That's it. You're not getting any calls, you're not getting any inquiries. It's a visibility issue. So that's the only stage really where marketing as we know it comes into play. It's visibility. After that, everything else is enrollment management and how you check in with the parents, how effective your story is. Um, Number two is conversion. So families tour the school but don't enroll. This is where we really have to heavily audit what is the tour like? What has gone well? What could we have improved? How can we make the tour better for future parents? Is it just price? Um, asking these questions is really important. Three is system. So families contact the school but fall through the cracks. Are you keeping all of your communication on a spreadsheet and trying to keep up with it during a very, very busy and time of year? That's probably why they're falling through the cracks. Having something with automations in place, having a client relationship manager, using MailChimp, having some way for parents to constantly hear from you is super, super important. Um, and then leadership capacity. I think, what I shared probably feels overwhelming because it is. We're basically telling you that in the future, marketing and enrollment is going to be a, a major, major, I guess, decider of whether you're going to have the enrollment you need to survive as a business. You need to stay relevant and visible to parents. You need to tell your story effectively. Most school leaders, that's not really they're they have so many things on their plate. They're getting pulled out of the office, they're getting pulled out left and right. So enrollment really depends on the availability of the school leader. Recognizing which challenge you are facing is the first step towards solving it. Um, but that's a lot to carry. We already feel like we're doing um, so much as school leaders. Some strategic focus areas, again, that just some key takeaways is, focus on your website clarity and storytelling. Parent education about Montessori is important. Montessori marketing is just parent education. That's all it is. And it also means you have to understand your parent audience, which changes every generation. It changes every couple of years. What challenges parents are facing, financial situations, work, changing family values. Online visibility and search presence, consistent communication systems as well. All of these are strategic focus areas for, ongoing. They have to be running throughout the year, not just before enrollment season, but always. Something we want to acknowledge is what we shared can seem overwhelming. It's a lot. Um, you know, At Montessori Thrive, we started as a marketing company, but our main purpose moving forward has been about protecting the school leader's time. Our goal is to help provide an in-depth, full solution into marketing while protecting your time as a school leader. Um, you're already overwhelmed. There are marketing tasks, there is enrollment management, there is parent communication, there is operations. There's surprises every day. Oh, licensing just dropped by, or, I have to make sure everything is in order for, my accreditation every year, or I have to make sure my staff has the training they need. I have to make sure all the finances are in order. I need to prepare for a staff meeting. It's overwhelming. It's definitely more than one full-time job. Leadership time should really focus on educational quality, staff support, community culture. I think when leaders of the school are really connected to the community aspect, they're more present, it makes the school stronger and it also helps parents see the value of that community a lot more. So, A different way to think about enrollment, this is kind of just a generic, like it's a rhetorical question. It's not something that you need to answer, but ask yourself instead of thinking, what marketing should we try? It's where is our enrollment system breaking down? Because I think it's a huge misconception that Google Ads or something like that is going to fix all of the enrollment problems. It's just going to help your all that's going to do is help your visibility. That leaves a lot of the underlying steps completely forgotten, and it's not going to get you to the point of enrollment. Um, marketing isn't always the answer. It's important because you want visibility, but everything else is about enrollment. So that's where you ask yourself the question, where is our enrollment system breaking down? Um, when schools approach something as an enrollment system, the solutions become a lot clearer and more effective. And I think that's going to be necessary moving forward. It's going to continue to be a challenge. I think next year, I don't think it's necessarily going to get easier. So the direction for Montessori Thrive, we saw this coming when we made our change. And our evolving approach, it focuses on clear school positioning, modern digital visibility. We still think that, having that visibility is crucial. Systems that support leaders, value aligned messaging. Now it has to be stronger than ever. You have to make your values very clear. You need to differentiate yourself from the competition, and you need to highlight your proposition. And also reclaiming time because it's unrealistic for Montessori school leaders to do all of these things. A company, they would have a marketing person. They would have a person that just manages social media. They would have a person that just does all of their financing. What we notice about Montessori communities is that it's usually one or two people doing all that. And it's very, very difficult. It's almost like we've been dealt an impossible challenge. It's very tricky to do it all and to do it all well, which is what we're having to do more and more when we're competing with free programs. Um, so our services have changed as of last year, and I know you might have visited our new website. We talked about it. We talk about it in our newsletters. We talk about it here and there. But this is the driver behind these changes. Marketing tools are not enough anymore. And we're saying that as of someone who were previously a marketing company. And I say previously, we still do marketing, but I think that we're diagnosing this as a much, much bigger thing. This is about systems. Um, Without the foundational systems needed for them to succeed, your school is not going to be as successful. The school's website is the foundation. So, yes, we still sell websites and school websites, but it has to be a robust um, tool. It's not just something that you build once. I think a couple years ago, you could build a Montessori website that kind of acted as a blog for you to keep current parents engaged, and it would have your number and email, and that was enough. And now it has to be a much larger tool. It has to be the foundation of everything. And there has to be systems in place to get someone from your website to enroll. Um, so again, without your foundation, without that strong website, without the communication strategies in place, your advertising is going to perform poorly because you're getting the visibility, but you're not transitioning that person into the next stage of the enrollment process, which is what we need as schools in order to stay in business. Um, so this is why we have made intentional shifts. We're no longer offering Google Ads or marketing campaigns without a website foundation. Moving forward, and we've made these announcements already, but we are only offering Google Ads as a final piece. This should be kind of a relief to hear because Google Ads are expensive. Not every Montessori school can afford them, and it's not bringing you the return on investment that you need because that's not where the breakdown is happening. It's not happening because of visibility. Our goal is to transition that kind of line of thinking into selling products and services that are actually going to get parents to enroll at your school. It's a much deeper thing. It's about content, it's about your messaging, it's about your outreach, it's about helping you come up with frameworks and ideas for running better tours. It's about offering you actual support to save your time. Um, So our new premier service that we are offering, so we're offering kind of a series of new services, as you saw on our website. But our big one is one that is kind of a dream product. And Donna's on the call. She's our CEO. She was the visionary behind this. And that is our professional administrator service. Because as I mentioned earlier, to do all of these things effectively, you can't do it by yourself. Um, it's just businesses, they like I said, they have multiple departments. You're balancing multiple roles. You're doing enrollment and admissions, parent communication, marketing and visibility, staffing and HR, financial oversight, daily operations. Even I'm overwhelmed just hearing that. It's a lot. With this professional administrator service, you get everything that you need to quote unquote market to be visible. So that is, your website, your CRM, unlimited graphic design, because you need a graphic design, you need social media content, you need video editing, you need consistent branding, um, custom content and parent education, blogs, that social media content to actually help you post and stay consistent on those platforms. And the option to do search visibility, so Meta ads, Google ads, but you also get a person that's dedicated to helping you every day do multiple tasks. They can help you with enrollment support. They can help you with community building. They can help you with parenting education. Um, so, if you want someone to manage that follow-up process, what happens after the tour? If you want someone to help you build a community, you want someone to help you get, more reviews online, you want somebody to create an online community to keep in touch with your alumni so you can get, testimonials in the future when they end up going to an amazing college or high school. Um, they can monitor and protect your school's brand online. They can help with parent education. That's super time consuming. They can customize parent ed videos, slideshows, audio resources, anything that you need to help parents understand the value of school. I think with Montessori, you have to have parent education classes. You have to invite them to understand our philosophy, or they're going to lose interest. They're going to go to the free program eventually. You're not going to retain them, even if you've gotten them to enroll 1 year. Um, they can help with human resources support, verifying licensing requirements, recruiting staff, sharing opportunities for training with your team, tracking hours, keeping digital employee records. They could assist with financial support, providing budgeting models, creating strategic planning tools, monitoring invoicing and payments. So again, it's about helping schools reclaim their time and looking at this as a much bigger issue. This is a more meaningful investment than Google Ads because it's about being able to actually put your school at the forefront. Here's our story, here's our consistent communication, and you have the time as well because it's just, it's a lot doing school leadership work. So, the final reflection and kind of what I want to leave you all with is the question is not how do we do more marketing? It's how do we help families see the value of Montessori in a changing world? And that's going to be kind of the big question that we have to address in the coming year. It's not about how many ads am I running, where, am I the top sponsored on Google? It's a much, much bigger thing. You have to tell your story consistently. You have to make your school alluring. You have to sell your value. And you do that by following the journey, making sure everything is followed through effectively, having the strong website, having a strong social media presence, and also reclaiming your time, hopefully. Um, I'll leave you with this. We are currently offering a free trial. This is going to be on a temporary basis. It won't always have a free trial because we're really trying to push the service right now. So this will not always be available, but our professional administrator service will be available on a 60-day free trial, meaning you can trial it for 2 months. We'll pair you with a professional admin. This person will have Montessori training. They will work, with your school. Each professional admin will only work with 2 to 3 schools, so they'll be able to give you a lot of personalized attention. They can help you with anything that you need really when it comes to school administration or admin support. Um, so I recommend, there's a wait list for it currently. I think there's 7 schools on the wait list right now to trial this program. So availability will probably be late spring, maybe early summer, but you can't, you can't lose anything by just trialing it for free. You're not obligated to sign up if it's not the right fit for your school. But I did want to kind of highlight that we're offering this on a free trial basis. Um, if you want to learn more, if you want to talk to me about it, you can schedule a call with me by going to montessorithrive.com and clicking book a solution call, and I'm happy to share more about it. Or you can email me. I'll share my email in the chat um, if you're interested in joining the waitlist for that or just have a question to ask. All right, I'll stop sharing and see if you have any questions for me. I know that was a lot.
Camila, I have a couple of questions. Actually, there are some more details which I think probably best handled offline. But one
Uh,
question, general question I had is in one of your slides you talked about conversion,
mhm.
right? So I'm wondering, do you have any data from other schools to say, okay, what conversion rate is a good rate? For example, I mean, many years ago when I was more involved in this, I mean, I had put down and out of mostly thin air, a 50% conversion rate was my target. So if I have two or not, I have no idea whether or not that's a good number or a poor number. But if I knew that if it is less than 50%, then I know that I need to do something. So I just pulled that, and I'm wondering if you have something more meaningful, a number for that. And also, I was curious to see, uh, do you have a set of metrics that person who is involved with enrollment say, okay, are we doing a good job in enrollment? Because obviously conversion is one part of it, and there are other things. So here are five different metrics. And then we can say, okay, how are we doing against these metrics to tell us whether or not we are doing a good job in enrollment or a mediocre or a poor job. So those are the two main questions. The the comment I want to make is that in our case, we have a person who's full-time dedicated to marketing, let's say no, not marketing, but enrollment and community development. So unlike, I mean, we are blessed in that sense because I know many schools struggle because they do multiple things, right? The administrator does multiple things and they don't have enough time. We have the luxury where we can dedicate staff full time on these two things. But we have to know, are we doing a good job or not a good job, and how do we figure that out? So those are general questions, and I think we can discuss that more specifically, I mean, with you down the road if needed.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a person fully dedicated to marketing, I would highly recommend for them, and I'm going to make a recommendation to use, AI tools to start generating that data. If you have a person, of course, the idea behind the PA service is to, use that person to collect that data for you. But if you have someone doing your marketing full time, I would suggest that. In terms of conversion rates, um, I don't know if we have a specific metric because every school has different needs to meet their enrollment numbers. If you're saying 50% of people that tour end up enrolling, I would say that's a fairly high conversion rate. There's room for improvement, and you can always kind of, um, you know, collect more data. You can send follow-up questionnaires to people. That kind of thing. But if you have a person dedicated to marketing, that's something that they should definitely diagnose. My recommendation is, setting up a meeting with your client manager and your ads team. If you're running ads with us, the ads team, they can kind of help you assess those conversion rates, and then your marketing person can kind of create strategies for it. That would be my recommendation.
And one final question before I hang up here is, I mean, you talked about the personal assistance, the assistant program, and all the services they
Mhm.
provide. Uh, I need to understand what the level four subscription currently provides us and what it doesn't. So again, maybe we can target that for another meeting specifically and then talk about it because I don't want to take the time here. But that was the question that came up in my mind when we were hearing about that.
Yeah, well, definitely book a solution call with me. I can kind of go into more depth about, what's included, what are all of our services look like. For sure. I can kind of, and I can give like personal recommendations for your school specifically based off of what you guys need.
Okay, thank you.
Wally, could I step in just a second and maybe answer your question a little bit differently about metrics? I, when you're talking about conversion and you're talking about tours to enrollment, uh, there's actually a formula. You take enrollments divided by number of tours and get your percentage, right? And 40 to 60% is considered good. So
Good.
if you're falling at 50, you're in a great place.
Yeah, this is what when I was directly involved in this, I was doing that. I don't think we have done that recently. And one of the goals is that we need to start the metrics and say, how are we doing year to year? Are we flat? Are we doing better? Where are we? So that's one of the goals that we have to start really measuring these every year and see how we are moving along. So, but 50 was just I put that number out of nowhere. But I'm good to hear that, good to hear that you said between 40 and 60% is I mean, my gut said that it was, but I had no way to back it up.
Right. Yeah. And the numbers, of course, fall depending where you are in that enrollment process, right? I mean, a 4%, well, a 2 to 5%, let's say, inquiry conversion rate is really, really good. So you might get 1,000 inquiries and only get 4% of them because those people are not ready to buy and they don't
Right.
know what they're looking for. But when you start having people come in for tours, then 1 out of 2 is a great number.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do you have like any resources or like ideas for the reels and like the videos and stuff to post? Like we post a bunch of them, but it would be nice to have something to pull from that's like tried and true.
Yeah. We have, I don't know if you have access to our free online community, Montessori Thrive community. Have you signed? Okay, great.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
actually, and I think Julia created them. She's on the call here. She created real scripts that you can follow, and they're in our collection. So you can access those for free, just kind of giving you some ideas as to what to say on these reels. Um, uh, what I will say is that it's always easier to kind of film something on the spot, and then you can always do a voiceover. I feel like that's easier. It's like you don't need to be a master editor.
Yeah, usually
So those
I do
scripts,
more like text over the videos. I don't do as
yeah,
much of the voice. I've never done a voiceover, but yeah, okay, that's
that
great. So
works as
we just
well.
go to
Yeah,
the
because you
community and then type in the scripts.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually that works as well because you can use trending sounds, you can use calming music, and you can just overlay the text. That works as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'll close with this. We're at the tail end of a very, very difficult enrollment season. And I think, a lot of schools, um, you know, it's been a lot of work this year. Um, I I hope that, all we want to do is continue to provide support to Montessori schools. We still have our free online community of resources. We encourage everyone always to access that. You can always request resources. Um, we're looking to introduce as well more resources in the future for you all to access at no cost. And then, yeah, if anyone wants to discuss kind of our services or other ways to help your school, please feel free to get in contact with me. With the solution call that I shared, it's just on our homepage. You can also just schedule a call with me if you want to talk, if you want to run through some ideas, if you want some personalized strategies. We're here to help. You never have to buy something after you book a solution call with me. You can just kind of tell me what your experience was this year, and I can offer some suggestions that are a little bit more tailored to your school and your community and your school size. I know every school is different. All right.
Camila, before you sign us off, I wanted to, particularly if the schools on this call are struggling with enrollment, I wanted to throw out something that may give you peace of mind or may not. If you look at fill rate for your classroom, which means what percentage of your total capacity do you currently have enrolled for next year? If you're running any place above 85%, you're actually doing really, really well. You shouldn't be too worried. You don't need to be at 100% full to be okay. Typical schools aren't 100% full, but that number, if you run it per classroom, can give you a little bit more of a sense of, I can breathe, right? So that's the fill rate. Take the capacity divided by the actual enrollment for that class. And if you are 85% or above, pat yourself on the back and go, I'm actually in a good place. If you're under 85%, that's when all of these strategies really need to come into play.
Thanks, Donna. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. I know we went a little bit over time, but thank you for staying this long and hopefully this was helpful. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.